My name is John. I am an old man now, gray in the hair, lines carved across my face by time. But inside me still lives the young man I once was, a man who believed in forever, in promises that never break, in a love that could carry me through every storm. And for a long time, I thought I had that kind of love. I met her when I was 21. Her name, well, maybe that doesn't matter anymore. What matters is who she was to me. She was light in a dark time of my life. I had just come back from the service, unsure of what direction my life would take, working odd jobs, drifting between friends' couches and my parents' porch. I was searching for something solid, something to believe in. And then she walked in. She wasn't the most beautiful woman in the world, at least not in the way magazines would have you think. But to me, she was perfect. She had eyes that smiled before her lips did, and when she laughed, it was like hearing music after years of silence. That laugh, I can still hear it now, all these decades later. We met at a church picnic. I was leaning against a tree trying to look like I belonged, though inside I felt restless and out of place. She was carrying a tray of lemonade, balancing it clumsily, and one of the cups tipped, spilling cold liquid across my shirt. She gasped, her cheeks flushed red, and she started apologizing over and over. I should have been annoyed, but I wasn't. I laughed, and when she looked at me, really looked, something inside me shifted. We began to see each other often after that. Walks down Main Street, evenings on the porch swing, writing little notes folded into envelopes because neither of us could afford long-distance calls. She loved poetry, though she never admitted it to many people. I loved the way she read it, not stiff, not formal, but soft and alive, like the words belonged to her. When I asked her to marry me, it wasn't under fireworks or in some grand gesture. It was on a quiet evening, the two of us sitting on the hood of my old truck, staring at the stars. I turned to her and said, "I don't know what the future holds, but I know I don't want to face it without you." She smiled, teary-eyed, and whispered, "Yes." Our wedding was simple. A small church, a few friends, a cake that leaned slightly to one side. I remember standing at the altar, my hands trembling, not out of fear, but out of awe. I couldn't believe she had chosen me. I couldn't believe I was that lucky. The early years were hard. We lived in a rented apartment with peeling wallpaper and floors that creaked no matter where you stepped. Money was tight. We ate more beans and bread than I'd like to admit, but we were happy. We made games out of our struggles, laughing when the heater broke, cooking dinner together when all we had was scraps, telling each other that one day we'd look back and smile at these lean years. And for a while, I believed we would. She was my anchor, my reason. When I worked long hours at the factory, it was her face that kept me going. When I came home, tired and sore, it was her smile that made everything worth it. At night, lying beside her, I would listen to the sound of her breathing and think, this is forever. This is what love is supposed to be. If you had told me then that one day I'd sit here, old and gray, telling a story of betrayal instead of a story of everlasting love, I would have laughed at you. I would have said, not us, never us. We're different. But life has a way of humbling you. If I could go back, maybe I would notice the signs sooner. Maybe I would ask harder questions, pay closer attention. But the truth is, when you're in love, you don't look for cracks. You look for reasons to believe. It began so subtly, I almost convinced myself I was imagining it. At first, it was the little things. She used to rush to greet me at the door when I came home from work. Her arms would wrap around me before I even had the chance to put my lunchbox down. But one day, she didn't, and the next day, she didn't again. Soon, the routine faded. She would wave from the kitchen instead, her eyes glancing quickly before darting back to whatever she was doing. Her laugh, the very laugh that once felt like my compass, grew rarer. She smiled, yes, but it was different, a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I told myself she was tired. After all, we were both working hard, trying to save for a house, trying to build a future. Stress could do that to anyone, couldn't it? Then came the late nights. She said she was helping a friend, running errands, staying back at work. And at first, I believed her. Of course I did. She had never given me a reason not to, but slowly the excuses piled up. I'd ask, "When will you be home?" And she'd shrug. "Don't wait up." That was new. She had never told me that before. One evening, she came back later than usual. Her cheeks were flushed, her hair slightly out of place, and when I leaned in to kiss her, I smelled perfume. Not hers, not the light floral scent she always wore. This was different, stronger, almost unfamiliar. My heart paused, but my mind rushed to cover it. Maybe she hugged a friend goodbye, I told myself. Maybe she passed someone on the bus. The brain is good at making excuses when the heart is too afraid to hear the truth. And then there was the phone, a little glowing box that suddenly became her constant companion. She guarded it like it held state secrets. When it rang, she would step outside or into the other room. If I asked who it was, she'd answer too quickly, "No one, just a friend." But her eyes told a different story. I remember one night, I woke to find the glow of that phone lighting her face. It was past midnight. She was smiling, typing furiously. Her cheeks lit not just by the screen, but by a joy I hadn't seen in weeks. I whispered her name. She jumped, startled, and quickly turned the phone face down. "Couldn't sleep," she muttered, avoiding my eyes. I wanted to ask more. God knows I did. But the words caught my throat. I was afraid of the answer. Because, you see, betrayal doesn't happen all at once. It doesn't crash into your life like thunder. It creeps. It whispers. It plants seeds of doubt in the corners of your mind. And sometimes the person betrayed is the last one to see it. Not because the signs aren't there, but because love blinds you. Because the thought of losing them is more unbearable than the thought of being lied to. And so, I chose silence. I told myself it was nothing. I told myself I was being paranoid, insecure. I convinced myself that the woman I loved, the woman I trusted more than anyone else in this world, could never betray me. Looking back now, I realize that was my first betrayal. Not hers, but mine. I betrayed myself by refusing to believe what was right in front of me. There are nights that never end. They become rooms you keep walking into for the rest of your life. This was one of those nights. It was a Tuesday in late autumn, the kind of evening when the air smells like damp leaves and the sky can't decide if it wants to rain. I left work early because the press on my line seized up and the boss waved us off with a curse and a shrug. I remember thinking I'd surprise her, pick up something sweet from the bakery, sit across from her at the table, and ask how her day had been. The kind of small gesture that keeps a marriage stitched together. The bakery was almost closing. The woman behind the counter wrapped a slice of apple pie in wax paper and tucked in a little fork like I was a boy on a field trip. I smiled. I was thinking about how her eyes used to light at the first bite, how she'd lean her chin into her palm and hum a small pleasure hum she didn't know she made. It's funny what your mind chooses to hold on to. Our street was quiet. Porch lights were coming on one by one, small islands in the early dark. A dog barked 2 houses down. Somewhere, a radio was playing an old love song I'd heard 1,000 times without really listening. I turned into our driveway and saw the living room light was on. The curtains were half drawn, the way she liked them, enough to feel private but not trapped. When I opened the front door, the house smelled different. Not bad, not obvious, just not ours. Like someone had moved a piece of furniture an inch to the left, and the room was pretending nothing had changed. On the entry table, her keys were there, but next to them was a glass with a ring of water around it, and beside that, another glass, a second ring, 2 ghosts of circles going nowhere. I set the bakery bag down very gently, as if noise might break whatever I was standing inside of. "Honey?" I called, casual. The kind of casual you practice in the split second between suspicion and proof. No answer. I heard something then, a stifled laugh, a murmur. It came from down the hallway, our hallway, the one with the scuffed baseboard I always meant to fix. I told myself a story in those few steps. I told myself her sister must have stopped by, or a neighbor, or she was on the phone and didn't hear me. I told myself 100 things because the mind is a weaver and fear gives it fast hands. But stories are weaker than facts, and facts were already waiting at the bedroom door. The door was not closed all the way, just enough that I could see the sliver of lamplight laying across the floorboards like a blade. I put my palm against the wood. For a moment, I couldn't feel my fingers. Then I pushed. There are details my memory refuses to give me, like a film burned out in the middle of a reel. What it leaves me instead is shape and temperature. Her hair loose around her shoulders, the corner of our quilt in a heap, the sound of a man's voice dropping into a pitch I didn't know and will never forget. They weren't ready for company. That's all I'll say. I won't make it uglier than it already is. All the air went out of me. The room swam, then sharpened. Someone, him I think, made a noise like a drawer slamming shut. She reached for the lamp, as if darkness could undo what had already happened. "John," she said, my name cracking in the middle like thin ice. There was pleading in it and shame, and something else I couldn't stand to hear. I didn't shout. I thought I might, in some old movie version of myself, but I didn't. My voice came out small and far away. "How long?" He was scrambling, hands grabbing for clothes that weren't his, or maybe were, I couldn't tell. He kept saying, "Man, I'm sorry, I didn't," as if an apology could rewind the night to an hour ago when I was choosing pie. I remember staring at his shoes because looking at his face felt like staring at a sun I had no business facing. They were new. That's what I remember. New, clean shoes on our worn rug. "How long?" I asked again, each word costing more than I had. She swallowed. The silence between us had weight. "It wasn't supposed to be," she started, and then stopped. That sentence has no ending anyone wants to hear. He brushed past me, muttering, "The way you sidestep a man whose life you've just stepped into." The hallway seemed impossibly narrow. My shoulder hit the doorframe, but I didn't feel it. The front door opened, closed, and we were two again, but not the two we had been 2 minutes before. She had pulled the sheet around her like a shield. Her eyes were shining with the kind of tears that ask for mercy and forgiveness that hasn't been earned. She said my name again, softer. The room was too bright. The lampshade cast little patterns on the wall we'd painted together one spring when we still made plans. I wanted a clean question, something that would organize the chaos into a ledger I could read. How long? Who started? Why here? Why now? But there's no tidy arithmetic for betrayal. It spills. It stains. It refuses to be balanced. I don't know what you want me to say, she whispered. The truth, I said, surprising myself. It sounded brave, but I think it was just the only word I had left. She told me pieces, not enough to make sense, enough to make it worse. It felt like I couldn't breathe, she said, looking past me at nothing. I don't know when we became roommates. I don't know when I stopped feeling like myself. He made me feel. She bit the sentence in half. I didn't ask her to finish it. Some shapes, once named, never leave a room. People will tell you anger comes first. They're wrong. It's unbelief. It's your brain standing in front of a wall that says 2 + 2 = 7 and insisting the chalk is lying. I looked at her and saw the woman I had married and a stranger wearing her face. Two truths in the same place, both refusing to move. I sat down on the edge of the chair by the dresser because my knees didn't trust me. There was a stack of laundry on the seat I hadn't put away. Socks. A shirt I'd been meaning to fix a button on. The ordinary in the middle of the unforgivable. It felt obscene that the world could be so normal and so broken at the same time. I loved you, I said, and heard the tense even as I said it. Past I hadn't chosen it. It had chosen itself. I love you, she shot back, fast, reflexive, then softer. I don't know what's wrong with me. That's a question for a different night, I thought. For a different life, maybe. Not for the one where the bed is still warm from where two people lay who were not me. My hands were shaking. I tucked them under my thighs like a child so they wouldn't betray me further. There's a version of this story where we fight, where things break, where neighbors call because of the noise. That's not my version. What broke in our house did it quietly, like ice separating on a lake while the world sleeps. I stood up. The room tilted and then steadied. I picked up the bakery bag from the hallway table on my way out because I couldn't stand the thought of it sitting there like a joke at our expense. On the front porch, the night air hit my face cold and clean. Someone drove by slowly, their headlights sweeping the front of the house, making the shadows jump. I sat on the top step and opened the bag. The pie had gone warm, the wax paper shiny with butter. I took a bite because I needed something to be exactly what it was supposed to be. It tasted like apple pie. It tasted like nothing. Time did a strange thing then. It stopped keeping time. I couldn't tell you if I sat there for 10 minutes or 2 hours. The neighbor's dog barked and then gave up. A moth battered itself senseless against the porch light. The world kept doing its small work, indifferent to mine. At some point, my hands remembered my car keys. I don't recall deciding to go anywhere. I only remember the road unfurling under the tires, the white lines sliding by like a metronome for a song I didn't want to hear. I drove to the only place open late, the diner 2 miles down, the one where the coffee is always little burnt and the waitress calls everyone Hawn because it's easier than remembering names. She poured me a cup without asking. Long night, she said, not unkindly. I nodded. Words were not a thing I trusted just then. In a corner booth, a young couple sat too close on one side of the seat, sharing fries, laughing at a joke that had only one punchline: youth. I watched them the way a man watches a fire he can't warm his hands by anymore. I tried to eat. The fork felt heavy. The coffee tasted like old coins. When the waitress brought the check, she slipped it under the saucer like she was tucking in a child. Her hand brushed the table once, a small human gesture that said, "I see you," without making a scene of it. I left more money than the meal cost because I needed to be the kind of person who could still do something decent, even if it was small and useless. The sky was punishingly clear on the drive back, no clouds to hide behind. Stars, like cold nails. I parked 2 houses down because I didn't know if I wanted to go home or keep driving until the highway ran out of itself. The porch light was on. We used to leave it on for each other. I looked at it and felt a bitterness so sharp I had to lean against the hood of the car until it passed. Inside, the house was quiet. She had closed the bedroom door. I didn't touch it. I went to the kitchen instead and sat at the table where we'd eaten 100 dinners and fought a handful of fights and made up more times than I can count. The bakery bag sat on the counter, small and silly. I threw it away because I couldn't stand to look at it anymore. There was a photo on the refrigerator held by a magnet shaped like a lemon. Us at the lake, cheeks sunburned, eyes squinting, smiles easy. I took it down. I didn't tear it. I didn't have the heart to destroy the people we were, even if the people we were now had wrecked them. I slid it into the drawer with the takeout menus and the pens that sometimes worked. It felt right that it went somewhere half forgotten. That's what memory is mostly, organized forgetting. I don't know when dawn came. The window above the sink went from black to gray to a pale kind of mercy. Birds started their busy chatter, unbothered by human catastrophe. I washed my face at the sink and stared at the man in the glass. He looked older than he had yesterday, not by years, by miles. There are 2 kinds of endings, the kind that slam the door and the kind that leave it open so the wind can make up your mind. That morning, we had the second kind. She came into the kitchen in a robe, hair tied back, face bare of whatever it is people put on to feel brave. She sat across from me and folded her hands and looked at me like a student waiting for a grade she already knew. "I don't know what happens now," she said. "Me neither," I answered. It was the truest thing I'd said in months. We didn't decide anything that day. The decisions would come later, dragged through conversations with lawyers and friends and family who meant well and couldn't help. What we did that morning was sit in the space between a life and whatever comes after. It is a harder geography than any I've traveled since. People think betrayal is one event. It isn't. It's an aftershock that keeps shaking the ground long after the first quake. But the first fracture, that Tuesday night, that was the moment the map changed. From that day on, every road I took led away from the house I thought I lived in. I stood up because my legs needed me to. I put the kettle on because my hands needed work. She reached for the sugar bowl out of habit, then stopped, as if the ritual belonged to someone else and we had stolen it. The kettle whistled. I poured the water. We pretended we might drink it. And somewhere deep in me, under the shock, under the nausea, under the 1,000 questions, a small bitter clarity settled. We don't come back from this, not to the same place, not as the same people. There might be a future of some kind, civil, polite, even kind. But the old house had burned down. Morning light was just showing us the ashes. That was the night, the never-ending one. The room I still walk into when a certain song comes on the radio, or I catch the wrong perfume in a grocery aisle, or I see a pair of new shoes on an old rug and my heart thinks it recognizes them. It doesn't end, not really. You just learn where the doors are so you can step out again. People think the worst part of betrayal is the moment you see it with your own eyes. But they're wrong. The worst part is what comes after. The silence. The quiet that follows when the shouting is done, when the lies are no longer hidden, when the truth has broken the air in half. That silence can swallow a man whole. The first morning after I found out, the house didn't feel like mine anymore. I woke up on the couch, my neck stiff, my mouth dry. The bedroom door was still closed. I couldn't bring myself to open it. That room wasn't mine now. It was a crime scene. The body of our marriage lay inside. The living room clock ticked so loudly it felt like a hammer in my skull. I sat there, staring at the coffee table, at the dent in the wood from when we had dropped a heavy bowl years before. I used to love that dent. It was a little scar in our furniture, a story I told friends when they came over. We were laughing so hard, we didn't even notice the bowl slip. Now I couldn't look at it without feeling the ache of everything that had changed. I didn't eat that morning. The thought of food made my stomach twist. I poured myself coffee, but it turned cold on the table before I touched it. My hands were busy holding my head up, elbows on my knees, as though if I let go, my skull might split in half. She moved through the house like a shadow, quiet, distant. I heard her in the kitchen opening cupboards, setting down plates she wouldn't eat from. We didn't speak. We were two strangers in the same space, both of us afraid of the sound of our own voices. The days blurred. One bled into the next. I go to work, stand at my machine, hands moving out of habit, mind somewhere else. My foreman asked me once, "John, you all right?" And I lied. "I'm fine." But I wasn't fine. I was unraveling, thread by thread. Every hour I stood pretending. Evenings were the hardest. The house grew darker earlier in those months, the shadows climbing the walls before I was ready for them. I'd sit in my chair, listening for a voice that didn't come. The television played in the background, but I couldn't follow the storylines. Every laugh track felt like mockery. Every commercial for happy families felt like salt in a wound. Sometimes I thought I heard her laugh again, soft, from down the hallway. My heart would leap like a fool's, and I'd stand only to remember what I had seen, to remember what could never be undone. Memory is cruel like that. It teases you with what you've lost, just to watch you break all over again. I tried to pray. I sat on the edge of the bed one night, hands clasped so tightly my knuckles burned white, and whispered into the dark. But the words tangled, stuck in my throat. I didn't know what to ask for. Forgiveness? Strength? A miracle that would turn back time? Nothing seemed possible anymore. The silence swallowed my prayers too. Friends came by, knocking on the door with casseroles and concerned eyes. "You need anything, John?" they'd ask. I'd shake my head. I didn't want their pity. I didn't want their words. Words felt useless. So they'd leave food on the counter, and I'd throw it away days later untouched. Even kindness was too heavy for me to carry. Nights stretched the longest. I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, counting cracks in the plaster like they were hours passing. The bed felt enormous, a canyon between me and the place she once lay. I'd roll to my side, reach out of habit, and my hand would find only cold sheets. That emptiness was louder than any scream. One night, I walked through the house, room by room, like a ghost haunting my own life. In the wardrobe, her dresses still hung neat and pressed like soldiers waiting for orders. I couldn't bear to touch them. In the bathroom, her perfume bottle sat half full, the scent still strong enough to make my chest ache. I opened the medicine cabinet and closed it again immediately. Even the little bottle of aspirin felt like it belonged to a world that no longer existed. The betrayal had not just broken my marriage, it had broken the geography of my home. Every room was a reminder, every object a weapon, a pillow, a photograph, a teacup, all of it sharpened by absence. There were moments I thought of leaving, just walking out with nothing but the clothes on my back. I even packed a bag once, shirt, razor, wallet. I stood at the door, hand on the knob, heart pounding. But where would I go? The house wasn't mine anymore, but nowhere else was either. I was trapped in a place that no longer wanted me, and yet I couldn't escape it. And so I stayed. I sat in the silence. I listened to the house breathe, and I began to understand that the worst part of betrayal isn't the act itself. It's the aftermath. It's living inside the ruins day after day, trying to convince yourself the ground is solid when you know it isn't. That silence almost swallowed me. Almost. Betrayal does not kill you in a single blow. It lingers. It drains. But somewhere in the midst of that emptiness, life insists on being lived, and slowly, very slowly, you begin to return to yourself. The first months were a blur. I lost weight without trying. My coworkers noticed before I did. "John, you all right? You look thin," they'd say. I'd wave it off, pretend it was nothing, but it was something. It was grief taking up residence in my body. Yet in the middle of that heaviness, small things began to catch my attention. One morning, I stepped outside with my coffee. The air was sharp, the kind that wakes you whether you want it to or not. The sun was just beginning to rise, painting the sky in soft pink and orange. For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of peace. Not joy, not happiness, just a moment where the world seemed bigger than my pain. I clung to that moment. My nephew came to visit one weekend. He was just a boy then, full of energy, bouncing around my living room like it was a playground. He asked me to tell him a story from back in the old days. I resisted, my throat tight, my chest heavy, but he wouldn't relent. So I began. I told him about when I was his age, running barefoot through fields, sneaking apples from the neighbor's orchard, getting caught and running faster than I thought I could. He laughed, and then without meaning to, I laughed too. The sound startled me. It had been so long since I'd heard my own laughter that it felt foreign. But it was there, rusty but real. That laugh was a crack in the wall I had built around myself. And once there was one crack, others followed. I started taking walks in the evenings. At first just down the street, then around the block. The rhythm of my footsteps steadied me. I nodded to neighbors. Some nodded back. Some looked away. That was fine. I wasn't ready for questions, but moving, just moving, felt like progress. I fixed things around the house, the broken chair leg, the loose hinge on the cabinet, small things, but each one a way of telling myself, you're still here. You can still build. You can still repair. The betrayal never left me. It lived inside me like a scar that still aches when the weather changes. But it stopped being the only thing inside me. Slowly, I began to fill the silence with other sounds, my footsteps, my laughter, the scratch of a pen as I wrote down thoughts I didn't want to lose. And then, one evening, I realized something that changed everything. I was still alive. My heart was still beating. And as long as it beat, I had a choice. I could spend the rest of my days staring at the ruins, or I could step forward into whatever life still had to offer. Now, as an old man, I look back on that chapter of my life, and though it nearly destroyed me, I can see now that it also reshaped me. Betrayal carved deep into me, but from those wounds came wisdom I could never have found otherwise. It has been decades since that night. Decades since the sound of laughter behind a closed door changed the map of my life forever. And yet here I am, older, grayer, slower, still carrying the weight, but also carrying something else, perspective. For a long time, I thought betrayal defined me, that I was the man who had been cheated on, the man who wasn't enough, the man who lost. But as the years went by, I realized something important. Betrayal doesn't define the one betrayed. It defines the one who betrays. Her choices were not my failures. Her actions did not erase my worth. I never remarried, not because I couldn't, but because I didn't want to build my life on fragile trust again. Instead, I poured my love into other places, my family, my friends, the small joys of everyday living. A sunrise, a child's laugh, the smell of bread baking in the oven. I discovered that love is not always about romance. Sometimes love is in the ordinary, in the quiet presence of people who stay when others leave. Do I forgive her? That's a complicated question. I don't know if forgiveness is the right word. What I did was let go. I stopped carrying the hatred. Hatred is a heavy stone, and I was tired of dragging it. Letting go freed me. It gave me back parts of myself I thought were lost. Now, when my grandchildren sit at my feet and ask, "Grandpa, how do you know if love is real?" I smile. I tell them, love is real when it makes you grow. Even if it ends in heartbreak, even if it shatters, if it leaves you wiser, kinder, more alive, then it was real. The betrayal I lived through taught me this. Hearts break, but they also heal. Scars remain, but scars are proof you survived. Trust can be broken, but life doesn't end there. Life continues. It always continues. So if you hear my story and feel the weight of betrayal in your own chest, let me leave you with this. You will survive. You will breathe again. You will find joy even if it feels impossible now. And one day, you'll look back, not without pain, but with gratitude that you lived, that you loved, that you learned. Because betrayal may take away the life you thought you had, but it cannot take away the life still waiting for you.